Hello, everybody. Namaskar. A hearty welcome to all of you. I am Tanaya, and I welcome you to this super special event from the house of Team Cradle. I'm joining you all live from Bangalore, India. Now, let me tell you why I call this event or session today super special, because it is our anniversary event. Yes, we have covered a year-long journey so far. 14 months to be precise. We started with our sessions way back in December 2020 in the midst of a global pandemic, with the Cradle team forming and coming together from different walks of life, different diverse backgrounds, trying to do something good, meaningful, impactful. And I'm very happy to tell you all today that we have covered some good distance. And most importantly, we have had, as a team, an amazing learning all along the way. Uh, and if you have followed our sessions so far, you would have noticed that we have had sessions uh, wherein we tried to explore answers to questions that have been very complex in nature, have boggled human mind, questions related to life and growth. We have had 13 sessions so far in the last 14 months. And we have had speakers joining us in our sessions from different domains and different fields, eminent speakers who have added richness to all our sessions so far. We have grown strength to strength in this journey, and our strength definitely comes from you, my dear audience. Very happy again to tell you that our Facebook Cradle page today has more than 30,000 followers. We are having a massive viewership in all our events, around 700K, 800K. And what makes us super excited is all the reactions, all the comments, and that you share with us. You are sharing our posts, you are liking, you are reacting, you are commenting. And today, as I speak on behalf of my team Cradle, I can only say that we are all filled with so much gratitude. Uh, while we move ahead, let us take a look back and look at the sessions, the 13 sessions we have done so far. May I please have the video on screen? Well, brings a big smile on my face, makes me feel very nostalgic. And I'm sure our team, as well as our audience who are engaged with us right from the start, are also sharing my emotions and sentiments today. Well, these are the baby steps, and we do look forward to walking ahead along with you, my dear audience, as we move forward with our sessions and the season two starts off. Well, coming back to the session today. Well, today we have decided, as it is the anniversary event, we are gonna jog down the memory lane. We will do a recap of all the sessions that we have done so far, talking about the central theme which we tried to cover on being, on becoming, on life and growth. We'll definitely touch upon the major sessions, the major thoughts that were shared by some of our panelists. We're extremely fortunate to be joined by three of our eminent panelists who were there with us in our sessions, and you have seen them in the earlier sessions as well as in the video that we played just now for you. May I please have them on screen? Yes, right there on the screen are my panelists for today's discussion. Uh, we are seeing Mr. Ram Kinkar Thakur, who has joined us from Oslo in Norway. Mr. Ram is a senior professional in the field of oil and gas, 20 years of experience, over 20 years of experience working across the globe in various assignments. So happy to have you back, Mr. Ram. We have Mr. Shutonu Chakraborty joining us from Chennai, India. And he is an associate professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering in the prestigious IIT Madras. Previously, he was associated with the Tata Research and Development Center, Pune. Again, very happy to have you here back, Mr. Chakraborty. And familiar face in Team Cradle, there you can see Mr. Surya Mahapatra. Yes, a very familiar face in Cradle. He has been a panelist as well as an anchor in our sessions so far. You have seen him quite a few times. Mr. Mohapatra is joining us from Bangalore, India. He is the Learning and Development Head globally for a very strategic unit in a large multinational organization. Thank you for joining in, all of you, and looking forward to have the conversation today. So we have seen the video just now, kind of showing us a glimpse of all the sessions that we have done so far. Well, right at the start, I will take our attention to the second session that we did. And we did that session with Dr. Sudhanand Prasad, and I fondly remember that session. In that session, we asked the question, do our deeds decide destiny? We try to explore connection between our actions and our fate. So, Mr. Ram, I would like to start with you. What are your thoughts on it? Can we really shape our life the way we want it to be? Are things really in our control?
Thank you, Tanaya, for bringing me here. Um and I think this is one of the very important questions that has been discussed for ages. Let me start by sharing a discussion one of the disciples of Sitakur had with him so that we put the things in perspective. So someone asked a question to Sri Thakur. In the world, whatever is happening, in the root of that is God only. So where is the role of human then? He continued, isn't it then only if God wishes so, good human being can be created? To this, Sri Thakur replied, the meaning of everything in the hand of God is that everything is in the hand of human being. Take for example, a son or a daughter is born out of a father. Still, that son or daughter is independent, has the free will to either follow the father or go against it, isn't it? If one does not have the tendency of attachment towards the ideal, the God, out of love towards the ideal, the God, in fact, no God can do anything for anyone. If you look at universal law, that there is nothing uncaused in this world. The law of causation operates invariably in all spheres of matter, mind, life, and spirit. A given set of circumstances or condition and causal factor is sure to produce its appropriate effect in due course. And this process is constantly at work, both in nature and when it comes to human domain. It is our habit, thoughts, actions, attitude, outlook, character, and most importantly, our conduct that determines our destiny. We are happy or miserable, prosperous or otherwise, it's all due to our own action. We are made by them and them alone. We are aware of one of the very commonly used Sanskrit word widely known as mercy of God, and that is kripa. If we look into the literal meaning of that word, kripa from kru and pa, that is do, and pa, that is to get. So we have to do to get it. Thakur has said, to do is to be is to have. Let me bring one of the messages of Sri Thakur. Says fate, that is destiny, is fallout of your action that stands outside the zone of your awareness. Here Sri Thakur has focused on fate or destiny. As I understand, fate or destiny is that which is generally unknown. But irony is that for many, this fate appears to be the blueprint of life, which means it is something unknown, yet it is given and therefore inevitable. Because of its apparent inevitability, fate is considered to be very powerful. Many people often is seen to go down to this unknown force and deal with this in innumerable ways. And I mean, this is in every culture. When Siti Thakur says fate is fallout of your action that stands outside the zone of your awareness, he's saying that the outcome of deeds when surpasses the knowledge of a person becomes the destiny of or fortune, as we say. Through this message, Siti Thakur has identified two features of fate. One is that is unknown and therefore fate, you know, which so I mean may throw surprises to us. We don't know what it is for in store for future. And second, fate is the outcome of our action, consequence of what we have done in the past. And from that angle also, fate appears to be obscure. So there's a great dilemma in obviously all cultures, surrounding this, how to deal with this fate. One sometimes, like lending overwhelming emphasis on the predetermined nature of the fate, are, passively, for example, it says everything is written, on the forehead or printed on your palm in a symbolic way. Therefore, only option is for human being to accept the way future unfolds. And they take things easily as they go. On the other hand, some people react rationally too much. What Sri Thakur wanted us, based on my own understanding, is that we need to know about our fate, but we should not submit ourselves to fate, as fate is alterable. And therefore, the message is simple: no passivity, active faith on the divine, but reliance on self determination and action. So
Absolutely.
I will stop right there.
Thank you so much. A beautiful way to start our session today. And I'll add on with a message from the holy book Satyanusaran, where Thakur says, don't break down thinking about fate, work on. Don't be idle, for just as you work, so is your fate unfurled to your vision. The doer of good never fares ill. He gets his rewards sooner or later. Again, Shishi Thakur tells us that doing is the mother of getting. And that is precisely what Mr. Ram, you were trying to tell us today. And taking the discussion forward, I would like to invite thoughts from Mr. Mohapatra. Would you please like to add on to what Mr. Ram has said so far?
Tanaya, Mr. Ram has beautifully explained and answered this question. I really don't have to add anything. Just want to, I recall a conversation between Sri Thakur and Anukulchandra and one of his devotees. A devotee came to Thakur and asked him, Thakur, nothing is going right in my life. Everything is out of control. Now I'm scared of my life, scared of what's going to happen to me tomorrow. Thakur, used a very beautiful metaphor. He used the metaphor of swimming. Thakur said, listen, a person who doesn't know how to swim is scared of water because he's always scared of getting drowned in the water. But a man who has gone to a swimming teacher and learned the tricks and techniques of swimming enjoys water. He likes getting into the water. He goes into the depth of water. Next moment, he is right on the surface of the water. Next moment, he's in the middle of the water. He wants to spend time swimming, being inside the water. He wants to enjoy the water. Similarly, Thakur is saying, if you don't know how to swim or navigate through your life, your familial, social, conjugal lives, your professional life, if you don't know how to swim, if you don't know how to navigate, you will be scared of your life. You will feel nothing is in your control. But if you know the tricks and techniques of navigating through the complexities of life, like for swimming, you go to a swimming teacher. To navigate through the complexities of a life, if you go to the life teacher, understand and learn from him the techniques of living life, you will have everything in control. You will enjoy life. Thank you, Tanay.
I think this beautiful story, quite adds up to what Mr. Ram told us. And thank you for bringing this up, Mr. Mohapatra. So you are essentially talking about our fears. You are talking about a story when a person was scared. So many times, it is what we observe is that it is our fears which come in the way of our life, our growth, our fate. And that is why we took the topic on fear, if you remember, and I think it was our third session that we did with Mr. Deepak Kumar Das, who had joined us from Ghana. And what we tried to explore in that session was that is it really possible to overcome our fears? And that is what I really want to understand more on today. And my question to you, Mr. Chakraborty, is what are your thoughts on this? Is it really possible to completely win over our fears? If no, why? And if yes, how?
Yeah, so thank you, Tanyadi, for the question. Yeah, so My brief answer to it, as enlightened by our love Lord Sri Thakur, Anukulchandra, that yes, we should overcome fear and we should become fearless in our lives. So, to understand how we can become fearless in life, we need to know why we have fear, what is the root cause of fear. If I penetrate deep into any fear that I have in my life, I see that I have this fear of losing something that I cling on to as my own, that is not entirely consecrated to the cause of my love master. That is the root cause of my fear. We want to cling on to that which we have, which we consider to be our own. The most deep-rooted fear is, of course, of losing our lives. But if we look at it, if you look at historical anecdotes, we find that it is not unusual to come across mothers who have overcome the fear of losing their lives. They have jumped onto fire or into water to save their little one. And at the heart of this is attachment to the child. Similarly, we can overcome fear if we have strong attachment to a living ideal, an all-fulfilling master whose only agenda is to bring out the best in someone in accordance with his or her distinctive trait. So one can truly overcome fear only when one has consecrated his life entirely to the cause of his master. Come what may, his mission must be accomplished. That is my sole objective. This is his attitude. And we see in our country lots of we see testimony to this. We see the lives of Hanuman. We see Shivaji, who fought the most valiant wars of his lifetime. We find Swami Vivekananda in the West. He doesn't know where his next square meal is going to come from. But all of them have consecrated their lives to the cause of their master. So this is the most important thing. When we are disconnected from the source, we do not have an appreciation of what we need and what we want. And when we are connected to the source, we never get depleted of resources. This is what Sri Thakur tells us. Sri Thakur was abnormally normal, and he wanted that we become normal as well. And to become normal is to become thoroughly rational. We claim to be intellectuals, but we fail to understand that this world is not designed by us. We cannot expect it to go by our plans. Like the television or fridge which has been designed by us, this world is not our own construct. And the false expectations that we have from the world leads to fear. There is a nice prayer called the Serenity Prayer, which says, God, grant me the serenity to accept things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. So we need to stay prepared for all that we have in our hands. Being unprepared is not synonymous to fearlessness. And it is rationality that gives us clarity of vision, which eradicates unfounded fears that are not grounded in reality. As we overcome ignorance, we become fearless. Madame Curie, whom I think Sri Thakur had referred to as a rishi, said, or a seer, said, nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more so that we may fear less. So the person who is truly consecrated to the cause of his ideal sees a ray of positivity in any adversity. He doesn't bow down to the adversities of life. And the most important thing is that he doesn't relegate that he realizes to a level of just a theoretical appreciation of things, not an intellectual appreciation of things, but he's situated in that wisdom at all times, that this life is ephemeral, that we have to leave behind everything that we are accumulating. So one who is deeply grounded in that everything that I have, including my life, essentially has come from my source, my master, doesn't have fear. And it is he who becomes truly aware of his own identity. So if you look at Indian scripture, the essential idea of all Upanishads, of everything that we have, is essentially the realization of myself, my true identity, Atmanang Vidhi as it is called. Heinrich Zimmer, in his celebrated work, Philosophies of India, summarizes it at the very beginning of the book by a nice story where the tiger cub has been brought up in the company of goats, and it became oblivious of his own identity till it was taken by another tiger, taken to the mirror surface of a pond where it could see its own reflection and identify that is in reality it is tiger. So we have to be aware of our true identity. In Satyanusaran, Sri Thakur says, Say not you are timid, say not you are a coward, say not you are evil minded. Look towards Father, speak fervently. Oh, I am your son. Within me there is no dullness, no more weakness. I am no longer a coward. Never again forgetting you will I run towards hell with my back towards your light, crying, darkness, darkness, darkness. So the person who has consecrated to him has no obligation but him in life. All the obligations in our family life, professional life, everything stem from our obligation to our master. We sometimes get afraid of people who are we regard as superior to us, our bosses, for example, in office. But Sree Thakur warns us that we should never have inferiority complex. Sree Thakur emphasizes that each individual is distinct and therefore is unique and has a distinct purpose in life. There is no weakness in true spirituality. If we look at a bird, someone might say that the wings of the bird are weighing it down, but the bird realizes it's the wings that allow it to fly. Similarly, our commitment to abide by the regulations prescribed by our loved Lord do not weigh us down. That is indeed what liberates us. And it is then that we actually, in one of the past sessions, we had this insight from Tanayadi about, that we should focus on solutions rather than on problems. And Sree Thakur emphasizes that in Satyanusaran as well. So all of this is possible only through consecration to the cause of the living ideal. So this is all that I have to say.
That was quite spirited, I must say, Mr. Chakrabarti. And I think, yes, what you essentially try to tell us is that it is our attachment which is at the root of fear. And when we ourselves make our love Lord the source, the center of our love, the center of our lives, and when we are connected to that source, all the fears just disappears, and that is where true courage comes from. Thank you so much, Mr. Ram. Would you like to please add on to this?
I think Mr. Chakravarti explained it so beautifully that there is nothing much
Absolutely.
to add. But just to complement on what he said, and the angle of attachment or expectation of outcome, that is in the root of this fear. For example, like if I get a project at work and I get totally attached to the outcome, thinking too much in lines of what will happen if this does not work or that does not work, this is not helpful at all. Not only it undermines my ability to perform, but brings all kind of stress and anxiety. We know, like in medical industry, it's unsaid rule that no matter how big the surgeon you are, when it comes to operating your own kin, you don't do that simply because you're attached, and that potentially undermines your ability to perform. Chichi Thakur in Satyanusaran said, "Desire unfulfilled is misery. Don't expect anything. Be prepared for every situation. What can grief do to you?" And like Thakur says, nobody is miserable by nature. If one wishes, he can drive it away. One of the important messages that I always lean on, Thakur says, pray to the Supreme Father. Thy will is good. I don't know what will make me good. Let thy will be fulfilled in me. And be ready to accept that. Joy will never remain and sorrow will never touch you. Based on my own experience of trying to feel and live this message of Sisi Thakur within me, I have overcome all kind of stress, anxiety, or fear of failure. This truly gives me happiness. I think this is what we all want. We are trying. Thank you.
Absolutely. So beautiful to hear all of you speak today in light of the philosophy of our spiritual master, our beloved Sri Sri Thakur. And then, yes, as you rightly pointed out, Mr. Ram, there is another message which says that in every condition, try to understand that it is the blissful will of the Supreme Father, and that is what will give you strength. While again, I am not able to completely say the message verbatim, but essentially the essence is that in whatever condition we are, if we try to understand it as a will for my well-being, the will of my Supreme Father, then we will be able to get strength, irrespective of what situations we are in. Taking the discussion forward, well, so far we have talked about things on how we can lead ourselves, how we can shape our own lives, how we can overcome fears. Now, we are also a part of the larger ecosystem. We are a part of the environment, and we covered this aspect, this relationship between us and the environment around us in quite a few of our sessions, if you remember. Well, the first session itself, we talked about working together for growth, the indomitable power of community. And we were joined by Mr. Manoj Patra from the United States. We had another session on competition versus collaboration, wherein again I had the privilege of being joined by Mr. Mahapatra. We had another session on sustainability, sustainable living as a way forward, wherein we were joined by Mr. Chandrasekhar Basuri. Before moving forward, let's see a video clip from the first session that we did on the power of community with Mr. Manoj Patra. May I
We
please
don't
have
have
the
to
video
lead
on screen?
ourselves into a state of scare or
So, if you look at the very purpose of life, at its basic, it is one, existence, and two, growth. So, how do you think community and the togetherness it stands for supports these two aspects of our life, existence and growth?
if you want to pursue any subject in our life, right? We need a teacher or a master. And many people realize it is subconsciously. You go and enroll in different school. I want to learn some music. Okay, look for the best music school around. I want to learn guitar. Look for the best guitarist there that's enlisted in the school. Enroll in the class and do it. Whether it's driving, whether it's pursuing a hobby, we do that. When it comes to the skills of life, there are many realized souls. But from time to time, I believe very strongly that prophets who are complete realized souls in the form of a human being they incarnate. And it is little ironical that followers of such prophets, who himself, any prophet, would have been replete with love. They exude their love unconditionally, selflessly to every human being, every living being. Followers of such prophets, down the line, they confine themselves to a few principles so rigidly and strongly that they start looking at differences. And one more big aspect that I always see, they have infinite power to forgive people. The hardcore followers of that community, they don't, at the blink of the eye, they may say we want to ostracize this person and expel them from the community. Somebody has violated a principle, let's expel from the community. But the prophets are so full of love and so forgiving, they are able to pick up those who are to be expelled, who are to be thrown out, who are downtrodden, and say, let's give them a new lease of life.
Well, that was a very special discussion because it was our first conversation. It was the first session that we did as a team, and we got some brilliant insights from Mr. Patra, who had joined us in again, talking in light of the philosophy of Sree Thakur. I think I will talk about a message from the Holy Book message by Sree Thakur, which says, "Serve thy environment. Let thy service be open to all." So Sree Thakur is telling us, let thy service be open to all, but take it not from others until dire necessity arises. Thus, keep your environment indebted to your service and be honored. Mr. Mohapatra, in different messages, Sree Thakur has talked about how we are not living in isolation. We are a part of the larger ecosystem. And it is not that only we should grow, only we should live. And until and unless we are living in sync with the environment around us, with the entire ecosystem, the growth definitely is not holistic, it's not meaningful. And in fact, we can say that there is no growth at all. So wanted to understand your thoughts, wanted to understand the basic tenets of living, working and growing together in sync with the environment around us.
Living, working, and growing together in sync with the environment. I think what a profound question. I think let's begin with some reflection. The shirt that I'm wearing has been stitched by somebody. The book that I'm reading has been written by somebody. The house that I'm living in has been built by somebody. The road that I'm walking on has been built by somebody. My whole life depends on somebody else. But when it comes to taking care of others, I run away. I think it's time for us to reflect. Sister Thakur Anukulchandra says, the moment you say darkness, the moment you say light, it presupposes the existence of darkness. The moment you say day, it presupposes the existence of night. When we say day, it means there is something called night. The moment I say I, it presupposes the existence of others. Sri Thakur Anukul Chandra says, the louder I say I, the louder it presupposes the existence of others. The word I has absolutely no meaning without others. My interest is inextricably linked with others. How can I ignore others? How can I stop living and working and existing with others? My life revolves around others. Now, the question is, what are the tenets? To understand the tenets of living, working, and growing together, we have to look at ourselves. We have to look inwardly at ourselves. We have to look at our body. The human body is a fantastic example of living, working, and growing together. And I remember Professor Chakraborty used this example in one of the sessions, and I'm kind of quoting him today. He gave this example of the hand. He says, if a mosquito comes and bites my forehead, my right hand goes and drives it away. If the mosquito comes again, my drive hand goes again. If the mosquito comes one more time to bite my forehead, my right hand goes one more time to drive it away. My right hand never ever asks, not even once, why am I doing this? The mosquito is biting the forehead. Why should I bother? It's not biting me. The hand goes out every time to drive the mosquito away. This is a great example of coexistence of different organs of the body, not just coexistence, existence in absolute harmony, standing up for each other, supporting each other. So, what are the fundamental tenets of working, living, and growing together? The fundamental tenets, according to Sri Thakur Anukulchandra, are primarily two. They are distinctiveness and interinterestedness. To understand this, again, we'll have to go back and look at the human body. In the human body, every organ has a distinct function. The ears don't eat, the mouth doesn't smell. The mouth eats, and ears listen, and the nose smells. Each part of the body has a distinct function. In the human society, each one of us have come with distinct qualities, unique qualities. We are unique in our own way. We need to understand our own uniqueness and respect the uniqueness of everybody else. So in a game of hockey, everybody has to play a role. The goalkeeper has to defend the goalpost. The goalkeeper doesn't go to score goals. The backward guy is always there to defend. The forward player is always there to attack. The coach does not jump into the field. The coach is always outside guiding the team. Everybody has a distinct role to play. In the human society, for us to live together in harmony, we'll have to respect the uniqueness and distinctiveness each one of us brings to the table. In organizations, in corporates, unfortunately, oftentimes we don't see that. We see everybody is there in the business of multiplying income. Doesn't matter what role I have to play. Now, what is the second tenet of living, working, and growing together? The second tenet is interinterestedness. We need to be interested in each other's welfare. We need to be interested in each other's life, welfare, well being. Going back to the example, what Dr. Professor Chakraborty had said a few months ago, the example of the hand and the forehead and every organ of the body. Each organ of the body is interested in the welfare of every other organ. We are all and in a society where we have to live, work, and grow together, we have to be interinterested. I have to be interested in your welfare, irrespective of your interest or lack of interest in my welfare. That is the beginning. That is the first step. That is a very important tenet of living, working, and growing together. How is that interinterestedness possible? Let's understand this with an example. Once Sri Thakur Anukulchandra asked his devotees, why do siblings often quarrel? Why do brothers who grow up often quarrel? One devotee said they quarrel for property. Another said they quarrel for money. Another said they quarrel and fight for differences of opinion. Sister Thakur was not happy with any of these responses. Sister Thakur said, look, in a family, if brothers quarrel with each other, one thing is very clear. It is clear that they don't love their father. If they love their father, they cannot fight with each other. The father here is the common interest for all the children, all the siblings. Similarly, in the human society, if you have to live, work, and grow together, we have to be interinterested. For us to become interinterested, first of all, we need to have a common interest. That common interest is the living ideal, the master, the guru. And if we have the common interest, if all of us are singularly and collectively interested in fulfilling the interest of our common interest, the living ideal, the master, the guru, we cannot fight. We would learn to coexist, because the master is interested in the welfare of the entire human being. He is the supreme well-wisher of the human society. He is the supreme well-wisher of the mankind. If he is the well-wisher of the mankind, I must love every human being. I must feel my own existence in every other creation of the creature. So, Tanaya, distinctiveness and interinterestedness, I believe, are the two fundamental tenets of living, working, and growing together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Mohapatra. I could not have asked for a more engaging conversation today. And I'm happy that it is happening in our anniversary event with all of you adding to each other's thoughts and enriching the conversation overall. And I particularly liked the analogy that you used, Mr. Mohapatra. And yes, it is quite a jog down the memory lane. And I distinctly remember Mr. Chakraborty talking about it, the
Yes.
analogy of a human body and how it teaches us collaboration. So yes, distinctiveness and interestedness. Distinctiveness wherein we are aware, we are respectful of the uniqueness of people around us. And interestedness is when we care, when we become interested for the well-being of people uh, around us. And that happens, and that can only happen when we have a common interest or a love center. And Sri Thakur says that love is the dictator of duties. He says that love infuses will and determines service unto the beloved and the environment. And that is the beauty about having a spiritual master. That's the beauty about having a center of attachment in our lives, of having a guru. Uh, well, Mr. Ram, Mr. Sutanu, would you like to add on? You are on mute, I think, Mr. Ram.
I say it was so beautifully explained. The analogy was amazing. And I'll just touch upon the love angle. We know as a disciple of Sri Thakur, how he has created everything just out of love. Love is the one of the only way, I would say, most important aspect how we can bring that harmony within our environment. I like to quote a message from our beloved Param Pujyapad Sri Sri Dada, and I quote, he says, "Love and serve everyone from the plank of disease and death, not because they are your friend or relative, but because, or neighbors, but out of feeling that your very creators have created them too." Now, how does this love come? If you love and says, if you love and serve your living ideal, loving and serving every living object will be natural, and they will come to you to get that. And he says, be present and shower Lord's blessing upon them too. Their ideal centric life, as Mahapatra also emphasized on that, will unite you with every other being. Gradually, social harmony, social justice will automatically follow out of this. Sisi Dada says this unicentric goal of life is the first step of our acquiring the mercy of Lord. And this will shower the light of heaven upon us. There is no other way. He says, and I quote again, he says, I again say, love and serve your master and also love others as the natural projections of his mercy upon us. This is the only way of acquiring true spirituality. Nothing else can bring that to us. So I think love is the root in the root of all that. Back to you.
Absolutely. Mr. Chakraborty.
Yeah, so thanks. It was so beautifully actually explained by Mr. Mahapatra and Mr. Ramkinkar Thakur that I have actually nothing more to add, but I have something important to clarify, which is the analogy which has been attributed to me is actually from our love Lord Sri Sri Thakur. So there is nothing absolutely that I have said or done which does not I owe everything to him actually. So it was in the course of a conversation that he was asked why should someone help someone, and that was the rational answer to that particular question that Sri Sri Thakur had given. And I think that the whole idea that Sri Sri Thakur had come, there is basically we do not have an instance of such a rational exposition into almost every little detail about the quest of mankind, the existential quest, as Sri Sri Thakur, the level at which Sri Sri Thakur has gone into to kind of answer those questions. And just to kind of extend the analogy that I think Surjada was trying to talk about, even if you look at the human body, you find that in every cell there is the nucleus inside which there is this genetic code. And so there is diversity in the function of each cell. So the epidermal cell or the skin cell doesn't behave like the heart cell, but each of them shared that same genetic code. So, and that is what keeps the whole system functioning as a single entity. And similarly, if you look at the societal structure, it is our urge of being and becoming, which is the commonality that we share amongst ourselves, along with the diversity that we have, that keeps the whole thing moving. Taking the example of the football team, that there is the shared goal that keeps the whole team moving, and that's true from a point of view of a living system all the way to societal systems and so on. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, my dear audience, the session which we are referring here, and where Mr. Chakraborty actually gave that example from the messages of from the words of our beloved Sri Sri Thakur. The session was on science and spirituality, and this is one of the sessions which obviously Mr. Mahapatra and Mr. Chakraborty were together, and fortunate that both of you are again together here. And I was watching it, and definitely very, very vivid in my memory. And another similar session which we did, wherein we looked at converging points of science, spirituality, was the one which we did with Dr. Swaroop on medical science, trying to solve some of the basic challenges related to the death and diseases. While whenever we talk about science, spirituality, it definitely gets all the more exciting. And today I would like to understand the thoughts of Mr. Ram. What do you think is the connection between science and spirituality? Do they actually converge, or these are separate tracks altogether? And if they actually converge, what are the converging points?
It's a very, very interesting question. At the outset, let us contemplate on science and spirituality, which are not antitheses, but they are two wheels of the same car that must work in unison. They are absolutely complementary. And this is not just my thought. One of the greatest scientists of all time, our Albert Einstein, put this beautifully, and I quote, "Science is lame without religion, and religion is blind without science." So let's first try to understand the purpose behind science. We know the term we always use, need is the mother of invention. So what is that need? If I put in simple words, it is the need to support our life, our lifestyle. I'll say the need to overcoming challenges that may be forcing, we may be facing that or likely to face in times to come. And for centuries, we have been trying to invent or rather discover the fact of nature based on science, scientific knowledge, and research, simply to make our existence continuous and smooth. And today, we have, like we see around us, we have all kind of machines, instruments that have significantly improved our lifestyle. Of course, we have developed beyond our imagination and are continuously developing with newer and newer technology that is available to us. But have we really got rid of our issues? And if we say yes, then what explains the act of rampant shooting, the incident that we have observed in many schools of the United States? I recently lost one of our colleagues in a rage incident in United States. Our office colleague, I knew him very well, leaving behind younger kid and a wife. And the fact that both the shooter and the victim being well placed in the society in terms of education, resources, but still that incident happened. Now, in your question, Ratnai, when you touched upon the objective, trying to solve some of the basic challenges related to death and disease, I must say that science have come a long way in solving many of our challenges, but is not complete answer to what we are. Rather, what we should be looking for. At one point, one of the disciple asked Sri Thakur a question on the same lines, especially in the context of dharma, religion, and spirituality, and bringing science. Sri Thakur's response was, "Isn't dharma, religion, or spirituality as we stand trying to do the same? That is to solve the issue we are facing." Sri Thakur says, and I quote, "Science and religion are not opposed to each other." He says that will uphold human existence is dharma. And it is a duty of dharma to overcome ignorance. But whatever progress we may make in the field of science, beyond will always remain forever. So, also the agony that is associated with that. He says if man wants to eradicate the suffering through the means of scientific instruments, then why should not he make use of his own physical body, so full of vitality, the best and finest of all instruments, which is at his own disposal, at the blessing of Almighty? No scientific instrument can be said to be perfect, which does not take account the culture of keeping the human psychic system healthy, sensitive, and tolerant. From this perspective, you may very well say that dharma is science. And I could say, I feel success is inevitable if we give correct direction after thinking and considering pros and cons rightly. Science is science, whenever everything is appropriate, it will work accordingly. But then, for the right kind of result, we need to know how to apply it. And what does that proper implementation mean? Take, for example, a simple example of gun that can be used to protect people, but can also cause unnecessary death, like the example that I mentioned. We all know, like nuclear energy, it may cause so much destruction and death. But at the same time, it can provide energy to human society. And this is exactly what we mean by proper implementation and purpose of use. And that is where dharma, spirituality, plays a key role. Thakur says, and I quote, if anything appears in my intuition, then and there, I want to carry out the same through you and arrive at the conclusion because of what gain is it to me if your knowledge, experience, and power of judgment is not expanded. Thakur says, I wish that you should learn to carry our scientific investigation flawlessly. I want this kind of convention to flourish under your guidance. There will be no ignorance and people can live well. He says again, your intuition will grow if you carry on spiritual culture and scientific investigation simultaneously. And even at that stage also, you have to keep a watch so that the scientific approach and interpretation is not discontinued. If you look at Thakur, he was a scientist, one of the greatest scientists we know. So the point is that a healthy body and mind, maintaining a continuous reactive, preparing it to observe and withstand any kind of adversities is so important. And that is what spirituality, dharma provides us. Without this, and merely relying on science will not bring the fruit that we are looking for. So I will just end with one message of Sri Thakur from the message, where it says, when science and embraces religion with meaning and means, meanly and fulfill each other with kisses and riches, heaven comes down through the royal road of knowledge to flourish all with elixir and bliss. Back to you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for the insights, Mr. Ram. And I remember in the session, Mr. Chakraborty talked about that at the very essence of science and spirituality is trying to understand the root of something, trying to understand the cause. Mr. Chakraborty, would you please, like to talk about it a bit, enlighten us all, and help us understand this a little better?
Yeah. Thanks, Tanayadi. So yeah. So in a sense, what Sri Thakur defined spirituality as is something that takes us towards the cause. And in that sense, there is a confluence in the sense that both spirituality as well as science essentially try to take us to the root cause of the reason behind our observations. There is a subtle difference, though. There are certain problems that are outside the realms of science. For example, those that are called the existential problems, the purpose of our being, why we are here, and so on. Those are clearly outside the purview of science, and this has been observed in different contexts. The Nobel laureate Peter Medwer, for example, had a book called The Limits of Science, in which it is understood that there are certain problems that are beyond the purview of science. Without getting into the details of it, I just also want to take up the point that I think Ramda very nicely mentioned, and that is about the fact that be it irrespective of whatever instruments we use outside us to observe the world, like a telescope or a microscope or whatever, the bulk of the process of perception actually happens inside the mind of the scientist and not outside him. The sublime experience of witnessing reality as it truly is can only embrace the scientist who is ready to question the veracity of all that has been acquired through his or her perceptual apparatus, and one who makes a sustained effort to hone these perceptual faculties over time. And Sri Thakur lays a paramount emphasis on this need for sharpening the perceptual faculties. So unless we actually evolve from within, irrespective of all the instruments that we have outside, we may not have a picture of the reality. So someone who actually not just stops at finding solutions to cognitive problems, but also to existential problems, will need to hone the inner world to essentially sharpen the faculties to the extent, and also overcome the drives of his passionate complexes and get regulated in the inner world. So all his biological makeup has essentially to facilitate this process of perception of truth. And this is where actually the true scientist is also a true spiritualist. Without that evolution of the inner world, you really cannot perceive what you truly want to perceive. And that is a very important aspect of the meeting ground of science and spirituality as well.
Absolutely. Beautiful insights there. And that is why Sri Thakur says that science must embrace religion and vice versa. And I would repeat the same message. I think what I have done today is I have set with Message Volume 1, a very special book by Sri Thakur, and also with Satyanu Sir. And we keep speaking about both these books. And as you people are discussing, I'm also flipping the pages. While some of the messages we already have known, we already have read, but some of the messages obviously sometimes goes out of the memory. And as you people are talking, I'm just flipping the pages. And the beauty is that we have message, we have thoughts on everything from Sri Thakur. And I had also just looked at this message, and exactly at that time Mr. Ram started talking about the message on science embracing religion. So when science embraces religion with meaning and means keenly and fulfills each other with kisses and riches, heaven comes down through the royal road of knowledge to flourish all with elixir and bliss. And that is exactly what Mr. Chakravarti explained about how these two things can come together, how we are able to expand the inner faculties of our mind, how it leads to the evolution of our perceptions. And he gave various examples of scientists wherein many of the discoveries or inventions that happened sometimes first happened in the realm of those perceptions and then came into existence. And that is why it becomes very important for us to evolve the faculties of our mind, and that is what spirituality does to us. Thank you. Really engaging conversation today. And I just hope the time could go on and we could keep engaging and talking like this. Another aspect which is so closely linked to our life and growth is education, is learning. We say that education is a lifelong process from cradle to the grave, and not only grave, I think it is beyond, and we believe that it is an eternal life for all of us. So if you remember, we covered this topic of learning, unlearning, and growth. There was a session which we did with Professor Biplab Loho Chaudhary. Mr. Chakrabarti, you yourself are in the field of education. So what I'm interested to understand from you is what you believe is the true objective of education, and what are the ways and means to fulfill that true objective and making the learning holistic in nature.
Okay, so thank you, Tanayadi, for the question. So I think this is a very pertinent question, given the situation that we have today. We see a lot of depression in the student community. We see students who are writing the NEET exam, the medical entrance exam in India, and a lot of students making suicide attempts. Those who are supposed to be guardians of our health are not able to protect their own lives, ironically. So definitely there is something that is missing in the educational process, and what constitutes the true goal of education. So the first thing we need to revisit is what is the objective of education. So if we look at what Sri Thakur has essentially indicated in various messages, the objective of education is to see to it that our inner potential find its fullest expression in accordance with one's distinctive traits, so that one can consecrate the fruits of learning to the service of one's love Lord, or the living master, or the Acharya. So one needs to have the Acharya as the center of one's life, and everything that one learns should essentially be invested in the service of the love Lord. We say Gyan Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Karma Yoga. Gyan Yoga is not just merely an objective appreciation of the world outside, but about the true appreciation happens when we know how everything that we study, be it people, be it objects, or whatever, can essentially be used to serve his cause, serve the cause of the love Lord. So that is the true goal of education. And what we see today is perhaps that ambitions of parents are being thrust onto their children, and the individual distinctive traits are not respected. What Sri Thakur wanted was not just that someone comes first in class, but also to ensure that others in class do well as well, to promote the growth of others. And therefore, what Sri Thakur wanted was not the kind of glorified beggars that we see as students today who are chasing after marks or salary, but something else. He said that the goal of education, or that is what he indicated in his messages, should be to essentially achieve greatness, not merely success. And in one of his messages called The Seed of Greatness, and I'm not reading out the entire message, but in that message, Sri Thakur says that successful men are not necessarily great, but great men are always successful. Bow to such great men. So what we need is greatness, and that greatness essentially emphasizes the distinction between livelihood and life. Livelihood, when we talk about livelihood, I think there was a Western scholar who said something to the effect that what we take from this world gives us our livelihood. What we give to the world gives us our life. And I think the distinction between livelihood and life has become blurred. And that's why we have a rot in the educational system that we have today. And what Sri Thakur wanted was that everyone should aspire to give, because that is the urge of our inner being. Our mind confines ourselves to a narrow, selfish goal, right? Just to sustain our own self and family and so on. But our being seeks expansion. And unless we give to the world something in accordance with our instinctive traits, we never have success within and never have greatness, true greatness. So it is the success in the inner world, the sense of fulfillment in the inner world, the joy of learning, that essentially should be the goal of education. And at the heart of it is the guru, because we cannot just learn from books. Books give us products of someone's thought, but the process by which that knowledge has been arrived is lost in the book. And that's why the companionship with the guru is very important. Sri Thakur wanted not to have residential systems like hostels as we have today, but small, groups of students, for example, enjoying the companionship of the guru and to have the guru as their role model. And we see the reflection of that in Western universities. For example, if you go to Oxford or Cambridge, you find a tutor's lodge where the tutor essentially stays with a few people. So that's kind of saying that the truth is universal, and it's known in different educational establishments which have succeeded. The other thing that Sri Thakur said, I think, emphasized was dignity of labor, I think, which we miss in today's, in India. For example, everyone is trying to become a doctor and engineer, but we don't have respect for professions like barbers, cobblers, and all the other people who serve us. And what we need is dignity of labor, dignity for all professions. This is what Sri Thakur emphasized. And also vocational education, which he emphasized a lot on. So the essential goal of Sri Thakur is character building, bringing in self-regulation. That is the essential goal. And for that, Sri Thakur wanted normal discipline, not formal discipline. And what Sri Thakur emphasized is that if you have an attachment towards the love center, as you start going towards north, you don't have to make specific efforts to move away from south. And also Sri Thakur emphasized that education starts from the mother's womb in a familial setting till maybe around 8 years of age, right? And all of that is very important. So since it starts from the mother's womb, therefore compatible marriages are extremely important. So great men are really born. They're not made in schools. So Sri Thakur, as I said, emphasized on distinctive characteristics, and that extends to education of women as well. So they should education should respect the way in which a woman feels fulfilled, which is very distinct from how a man feels fulfilled. Sri Thakur emphasized a lot on practical hands-on experience. In fact, there's an adage that says, what we learn to do, we learn by doing. And Sri Thakur emphasized a lot on this sensory motor coordination. So, this compartmentalization of education is something, again, that Sri Thakur, wanted to kind of eradicate. He said that we should kind of link up the disciplines across each other and also find the connect to life. Why should someone study something is not very clear for a student. And unless that is clear, what the connection is to one's life. And every student has to be attended to individually. The Tapovan school that was founded by Sri Thakur was actually unique. Sometimes we do not realize how unique it was because we tend to compare it against other institutes which are very selective in their entry criteria, whereas Tapovan school essentially admitted students who had no one perhaps to look after them, no credentials to back their academic records. And Sree Thakur said in each of them, there was a potential to excel. There was a student, for example, who came in Tapovan school, and his father had passed away. His mother was working as a housemaid somewhere. Sree Thakur made the teacher take in that particular student and give keen attention to him. And this student had this knack of actually making very nice models of cars and all. Sree Thakur appreciated that in public, and this child got so much excited about this unique faculty that he had that he went on to excel in his studies. Sree Thakur saw to it that he had an eye problem. Sree Thakur attended to that eye problem and cured it. And finally, he found a job somewhere in the Tatars because of his unique ability. So all of this journey to kind of look at a student from an individual standpoint, to take into account his distinct faculties, to look at him holistically, all of that was part of Tapovan. And just as Sree Thakur never discarded anyone from the purview of his love, from the purview of his companionship, he never wanted anyone to be excluded from the educational system. And everyone should essentially be given a chance to excel in his or her own way, according to his or her own instincts. And for that, it is also very important that the teachers are essentially centered on the Acharya. And to have ideal-centric teachers, to have role models, is essentially something that is extremely important. So I conclude here. Perhaps I've run out of time. My apologies for that.
No problem. I think these topics itself are so interesting, and the kind of messages, the kind of guidance which Sree Thakur has given to us is so huge, so immense that it can go on and on. And I can completely understand the energy involved, the passion involved, which drives you to speak like this, Mr. Chakravarti. Because one, you are in the field of education yourself, and second, the spiritual master, our spiritual master, who has given us such a wealth of learning that we want to keep talking and talking about it and sharing it with others. Any quick thoughts, Mr. Mahapatra and Mr. Ram, on this? And then we will move to the next question.
I think I would not take any more time. Professor Chakravarti has beautifully explained the meaning of education. And just one thing I quickly remember, there was a conversation between Dr. Panchanan Sarkar and Sree Thakur Anukulchandra. Panchanan Sarkar, who used to be a teacher in the school, Tapovan Vidyalaya, the Vidyalaya that Professor Chakravarti was referring to. One day, it so happened that Panchanan Sarkar came to Thakur and said, Thakur, it is enough. Enough is enough. You are sending every Tom, Dicky and Harry to me to teach them. You at least send some students who are sensible, who are good. You are sending students who are useless. I can't teach them. Thakur said one thing. Thakur smiled and said, Panchananda, he said something. I'm quoting that in Bengali, then I will say that in English. Thakur said, Panchananda, ধোবির কাছে কি কেউ পরিষ্কার কাপড় নিয়ে যায়? Does anybody carry clean clothes to the washerman? Panchanan Sarkar got the answer. And Sree Thakur's statement was so profound about the role of teacher in shaping the student into a great human being, a perfect human being, irrespective of what is his or her level of proficiency, character, nature, when the teacher is accepting the student. Thank you.
Beautiful story. Beautiful story. Anything from your side, Mr. Ram?
I think this has been beautifully covered, most of the aspects of education. But I'll just add on, I was recently reading Alochana Prasan, and the important point that Mr. Chakravarti put in, that the education starts when the child is not even born, from the womb of the mother. When we look at, especially parents' role is very, very important. Especially how am I behaving in front of my children, what I'm feeding to the mind of young child who may not even understand, but consciously or subconsciously. So I'll say parents have a huge role. Maybe another aspect is, maybe I'm busy when in my work, when my child comes with some silly question that I don't have time to handle, I don't even answer. How do I behave then as a parent? Do I unknowingly kill the inquisitiveness in my child? which could create huge adverse impact in the child for time to come. So, I mean, this is itself is a huge subject. For the lack of time, I will not say much on this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you. Very beautifully covered this topic.
Absolutely. And I would tell my audience it's very difficult now as we're doing the recap to cover everything in depth. But people who have missed out on those sessions, and especially since we are talking about learning, nurturing, you may like to go back to our sessions. One which we did on learning, unlearning, and growth with Dr. Biplab, and another which we did on nature versus nurture. And I think this is what Mr. Ram was touching upon: parenting, how we nurture, and we were also talking about compatible marriages, which Dr. Chakraborty talked about. So please go back to that session, nature versus nurture, which we did in the month of December rather, with Dr. Trilochon Mahapatra. And whenever we talk about education, learning, one message which definitely comes to my mind, it's a very simple message. It is in Bengali, and I'm just making an attempt to translate it to English. It is where Thakur says, Sri Thakur says, being expert in reading and writing, education you may not call. Being expert in reading and writing, education you may not call. Without habit, behavior, and common sense, there is no education at all. So I will leave you with that while going to my next and final question, and that is to Mr. Mohapatra. Well, right throughout our Cradle journey, and in fact throughout our session today, one central theme that is running is the importance of having a love center, the importance of having a spiritual master, the importance of having a guru in our lives. Would you please touch upon it, help us understand it more as to how having a guru impacts our life, impacts our being and becoming? Mr. Mahapatra.
Yes, as you mentioned, Tanaya, we have talked about it so many times in the past. And to the rational mind, this is a very rational question. Can't we pray God directly? Why do we need a master? Why do we need a living ideal or guru? Well, the human mind has a limitation. Human mind cannot understand what is abstract. So if I say to you that I came here by a vehicle, you will not understand that unless I say which model, which make of vehicle that I used to come here. So Sri Thakur Anukulchandra, in response to a question by a devotee who asked him the same question, what is the importance of a master, a human, a living ideal, a master who is a human being in my life? Why can't I pray to God directly? Sri Thakur said, when we think of poetry, when we talk about poetry, we remember the great poet Rabindranath Tagore, or we remember the great poets of our world. When we talk about kindness, we remember a kind man or a kind woman. When we think of love, we remember a mother who is full of love, or we remember a loving personality. So to understand these concepts like love, kindness, poetry, we look for a human being in whom these ideas, concepts, characteristics have been embodied, manifested. When we talk about God, don't we need a human being in whom godly attributes have been manifested, embodied? So, what are these godly attributes? God has three attributes. He has the creative urge through which he has created the universe. He has the upholding urge through which he upholds the existence of the universe and every creature. He has the nurturing urge. Through that urge, he nurtures and nourishes everyone. So, a guru, a love center, a living ideal, a master who has these godly attributes can uphold our life, can stitch our life together. We need that love center who can stitch together our scattered, fragmented, broken life. We need somebody who can uphold it, stitch it together. That is a living master. Can you imagine the solar system without the sun? The sun is upholding every planet in the solar system. Because of the gravitational pull, because of that magnetic pull, all all the planets are revolving around the sun. They're not breaking away. And all the planets also have the tendency of attachment. Every planet is trying to fall towards the sun. That's how they stay together. The moment they lose that tendency of attachment towards the sun, the moment they try to break away, if the earth tries to break away from the solar system, it will get fragmented into pieces and it will have no identity and no existence. The same thing can happen to human being who forgets, who does not stay attached to the love center, the master, the guru, the living ideal. His life can get fragmented. A quick incident, I know time, we're running out of time. A conversation between an IAS officer, very well established, successful IAS officer, and Dr. Rebati Mohan Biswas, the gentleman who did research on Sri Thakur's ideology in the United States of America. In a conversation, this IAS officer said to Dr. Biswas, he said, Dr. Biswas, I liked everything you said about the love center or guru, but I don't need a guru. Why do I need one? I'm respected by my colleagues. I'm a district magistrate, being an IAS officer. Thousands of people salute me. I got the award as the best IAS officer from Government of India. I'm efficient, capable, highly educated, successful, and I'm growing in my career. Why do I need a guru? Dr. Biswas asked him. Mr. Gupta, the IAS officer, his name was Gupta. He said, Mr. Gupta, when you go back home, does your wife have time to have a cup of coffee with you? Mr. Gupta said, yeah, sometimes, not every day, because she's also quite busy with kitty parties and with her friends. So when I go home, she usually goes out for parties. Dr. Biswas asked him, do your children respect you, obey you? Are they obedient children? Do you spend enough time with your children? The good Mr. Gupta said, no, we don't, because I'm busy, my wife is busy, but we have enough servants at home who take care of our children. Dr. Biswas said, do you want this life? A life where your wife is not there to spend some time with you and have a cup of coffee together. When your children are not obedient, you don't know what your children are doing, whether they are steady or they're going astray. You are successful, you are competent, you are growing in your career. But, Mr. Gupta, a person who has a tumor in his body, that is also growth. But do you want that growth? Do you want that imbalanced growth? Every human being wants symmetric, harmonious, balanced growth in life. And that harmonious, symmetric, and balanced growth, not a tumorous growth, is possible only when we have a love center or guru. And when you draw a circle, we need a center. In the solar system, there is sun at the center. If you want to write a story, you need a central theme. If you want to stitch together a garland, you have a string that is running through the center of the flowers. If you want to stitch together our life, don't we need that love center? Don't we need that living ideal? Don't we need that guru who has the upholding urge, creative urge, nurturing urge, the omniscient, omnipotent, true master who can stitch our life together, who can help us have symmetric, balanced, and harmonious growth? I think this probably sums up the need of a guru and how having a guru in our life helps us. Thank you, Tanya.
So beautifully explained, Mr. Mohapatra. And that way we all are very fortunate that we have Sri Thakur at the center of our lives and at the very center of our being and becoming. uh, and uh, and as you were speaking, I think all these thoughts keep on coming in mind, and definitely, and that's the source of bliss. And I could see a huge smile in the face of Mr. Ram, Mr. Sutanu, while everybody is trying to trying to absorb what you are saying, but that sense of bliss, that sense of happiness, that sense of joy, uh, that comes when we think that yes, we are so lucky, we are so fortunate that we have Sri Thakur as our guide, our master, our guru. And that is why we keep talking about this, sharing this with our audience, as it has impacted our lives. It can impact yours too. So it is very important for all of us to have such a center, to have a guru, to have a spiritual master. Well, we need to go to the audience questions now, unless you have quick thoughts, Mr. Ram and Mr. Chakravarti.
I will just add
Okay.
one quick point,
Yeah, please.
which is Thakur said one time in during the discussion about this guru need for a guru or the ideal. So Thakur said we are always driven by something. If we don't put on the chair that is driving us ideal on that chair, something else will fill up that chair. So very beautifully. I just end with here.
Sure, sure. We have one congratulatory message that has come from Mr. Deepak Kumar Das, who was one of our panelists, as I told you. So maybe please have it on screen. And post that, we will go to our audience questions, of course.
I extend my heartfelt and sincere wishes on the celebration of first anniversary of Cradle from Accra, Ghana, West Africa. Cradle started its journey with the blessings of Acharya Dev, and over the year it has grown and touched millions of lives. It has empowered, elevated, thrilled us to topic different facets of human life, human emotions, and complex issues that can elevate, nurture, and build our inner aura. I have been blessed to be part of this journey as panelist, as a fellow speaker in its early times, wishing Cradle an incredible journey ahead and to do the same, touching millions of lives going forward. I wish and extend my sincere thanks and greetings to the core mentor team, to the tech team, to the people who have continuously supported to make it possible month after month to touch our lives. Happy anniversary, Team Cradle.
Thank you so much, Mr. Das. Thanks for this lovely message. Definitely motivates us. And thanks to all our panelists who have joined us so far in all the sessions, and have made the journey really an amazing learning opportunity for all of us, and a wonderful experience altogether. Time for some audience questions. Maybe we have the time to take two today. Yes, I'm able to see one question right there from Swati Sarkar. Formal discipline, if not implemented with any sort of enforcement to create the desired norms, will normal discipline really come up? Well, I think Mr. Chakravarti, you mentioned about it, formal and normal discipline. You may want to take a shot.
Yeah, so thanks for the question. Yeah, so I guess the the main distinction between normal and formal discipline is the kind of appreciation that the teacher has for the distinctive needs of the student, and the way the teacher empathizes with what is actually needed by the student. And that is what actually gives them desired norms, right? So when we talk about the desired norms, these are not the ones that come from higher authorities like UGC or something like that, or all the bodies that are regulating, but what is most appropriate for that particular student in terms of the distinctive faculties. And that appreciation is needed for any kind of normal discipline to take place. If I don't know if I have time, but if I can take 2 minutes, I'll just share a small anecdote. So one of my cousin sisters who is staying at Deoghar, and she had a daughter. She has a daughter, and when the daughter was very young, so our current Acharya Dev's, Param Pujyapada Acharya Dev's son, he was also quite small at the time. I mean, young. Pujaniya Arnababu, and this girl happened to have a fight with that child, and she went on to complain to our Acharya Dev that this child has actually, Pujaniya Arnababu has actually given her a blow or something like that. And now this girl, right, she had this problem that she never used to take milk, and that is something that her parents were very worried about. And the moment she told that to our Acharya Dev, the response of our Acharya Dev was, and that's what is normal disciplining. He said, see, if you do not take milk regularly, you can't fight back. And that's the reason why you need to take milk. And from the next day onwards, she started taking milk. So all the disciplining that actually goes on at home doesn't work, but one word from the master, from one who knows it all, works. And this is actually normal discipline. And for that, we need to have that appreciation. So obviously, teachers won't go to the level of our Acharya Dev, but at their own level, if they can respect the instinctive traits of students and have that empathize with their goals, irrespective of what the norms are set by the university or whatever formal authorities, right? Then I think this can be effective. That's all I have to say.
Sure. Thank you so much. One last question, if at all it is there. Yeah. How can we teach our children to become fearless?
If I can make an attempt,
Absolutely, please do.
I think if we teach our children, I think the best way to teach our children to become fearless is to help them. You know, the reason children continue to, develop fear within them if they have a fear of failure. So if you remove that fear of failure from them, and if you can teach them that it's okay to fail, and when they fail, if you can stand up before them and then help them deal with that, and then also help them how to succeed, that's the best way to teach our children to overcome failure. Sister Thakur says, when the child grows up, child learns how to receive impulses and stimulus from the environment and how to deal with them. And one of the stimulus, possibly, which can be an event or action from somebody, can lead to a feeling of fear. But if we teach our children how to deal with impulses with the right response, I think that's the best way to teach our children to become fearless. So when a child wants to do something, parents usually try to restrain them from doing that. If our child, after completing her 10th standard, her 10th standard, wants to go and take up a part-time job, we say, no, don't do that. You continue to study. So if we teach our children to engage in activities, Sister Thakur is saying, when you teach your children to engage in activities, household chores, household activities, taking care of their parents, taking care of elders, they learn to become receptive. They learn to become more sensitive. And they also learn how to respond to different stimulus and impulse. And the ability to respond to different situations helps them overcome fear.
Beautiful. Beautiful, Mr. Mahapatra. And my daughter was, already. So when these sessions happen, so my daughter will be always near me somewhere, and she will be listening. And then when we were talking, and she's already showing me the sign that yes, she is very courageous. So hope it stays on like this. Moving forward, let us see another video, okay, which has come from, again, another lovely panelist of ours, Mr. Rajoshi Roy, and we can see his comment right there on the screen also now. So let us play this video and listen to Mr. Rajoshi Roy and get motivated with the message he has sent for all of us.
And Jai Guru. I am Rajoshi Roy. I'm based in London, but I am a servant of Sree Thakur Anukulchandra. I am so glad to acknowledge that Cradle has completed 1 year. I wish a very happy birthday to all the members of organizing committee of Cradle, all the participants and all the viewers also. In last 1 year, many eminent satsang personalities across the globe came here as guest speakers and shared their understandings on various contemporary topics in the light of the philosophy of Sree Thakur Anukulchandra, our living ideal. I am sure in this way, in last 1 year, thousands and hundreds of the viewers of Cradle got the insights of the teaching of Sree Thakur's way to lead a stressless life and how to protect ourselves from negative thoughts in our minds. I'm sure this worked as a very important tool to cope up depressions among the thousands during pandemic. I must mention that with the grace of Sree Thakur, number of viewers of Cradle have also increased exponentially after each and every talk session. I wish Cradle can organize the talk shows on various contemporary thoughts and the issues and challenges in everyday life in coming months and years. I wish all the best to Cradle team. Happy listening, Jai Guru and Bande Purushottamam.
What a lovely message out there. Thank you so much. Definitely it gives us all the energy to move ahead. Well, this brings us to the close of the session today, the event today, our anniversary event. I definitely liked being in this super rich conversation with such lovely panelists, Mr. Ram, Mr. Chakrabarti, Mr. Mahapatra. Thanks to all of you. I think it was wonderful talking to you today and learning more about the philosophy of our beloved spiritual master, Sri Thakur. So, in summary, I would like to tell that yes, let us focus on the right actions. Let us all be action oriented. Let there be courage and compassion in our hearts. Let us have a guru, a spiritual master at the center of our lives. And let us move on to shape our own destiny, our own fate. Let us not live in isolation. Let us try to live in sync with ecosystem, with the environment around us. As I look forward to season two and many such seasons coming ahead, uh, the journey ahead, uh, beautiful lines from poet Robert Frost comes to mind. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Thank you and take care.